Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Today, I'm excited because I have someone on that I've been following for a very long time, and she doesn't even realize that. But years ago, I found a Vani Hari post, and it was about what was going on with our food. And I think it was probably when my girls were little. And I think actually it was before I was diagnosed with cancer. And then since I've been once I was diagnosed with cancer, watching everything that was going on with our food. And I am so excited because Vani Hari is here with me today. She's better known as the Food Babe. She's also a New York Times bestselling author and the founder of Food Babe and True Vani. She's become one of the most vocal voices leading food activists and leading the charge against big corporations like Kellogg's to remove artificial food dyes from their products, especially those that are going out to kids. Vani, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I love that you've been following. That's so cool because I feel like I've been doing this work my whole life.
I know.
And I don't think it'll ever end because it's, the food system's so screwed up.
But that's the thing. That's what I think people don't know is that there have been people like you who have been working on this. Like we're all just kind of waking up to it, and social media has really blown up. And I think that, Bobby Kennedy really blew this story up and kind of paved the way for other people to come out and go, hey, we've actually been doing the work on this for years. And I will just say that one of my relatives their daughter is the same age as my oldest daughter. And so we watched them grow up together, and this other child started to have seriously bad tics, like where debilitating, couldn't get through the school day, and, moving tics in her neck, in her head, in her head area, her shoulders. And it was really, really, truly debilitating. And so her mom went and started doing all of this research, like what could this be? And the doctors all immediately said, put her on this pharmaceutical, put her on this pharmaceutical. She said, no, I don't think so. And then she found out food dyes can cause this. Removed all food dyes, no more tics. I mean, this is serious stuff.
Yes, it is. We're eating a chemical poisonous soup in our food. The majority of food at the grocery store is full of these dead chemicals. There's this underlying assumption that everything that we eat, all the ingredients that you see on an ingredient label has been tested by some third party, or the FDA has looked at the safety data of these chemicals and rubber stamped it and said it's okay for use. But that's just not the case. There are thousands of chemicals that have no safety data that are running rampant in our food supply. I mean, you've got one of the main ingredients in McDonald's French fries, dimethylpolysiloxane, which doesn't have any safety data on it whatsoever, but it can be preserved with formaldehyde, which is a neurotoxin. And we're, frying our French fries here in the United States in this substance, and they don't do it in other countries. So McDonald's knows how to make their French fries with less chemicals, and they choose not to do that. And that's what's happening with Kellogg's. Kellogg's back in 2015 decided to say, hey, we're going to remove artificial food dyes. We're going to remove BHT from our cereals. And this was celebrated.
What is BHT?
BHT is an endocrine disrupting chemical linked to cancer. So it's very harmful. They don't use it in Europe when they line the packages of cereal with it here in the United States. So it basically acts as a preservative so that the bag of cereal stays fresher longer on the shelf. And this is something they agreed to remove in 2015, and they got amazing press on it. People were celebrating Kellogg's for making this commitment, and they said they would make the changes by 2018, and 2018 rolled around and they didn't. And they started to create new cereals every seasonal holiday to target children, like Baby Shark cereal or Disney's Little Mermaid or Elf on the Shelf or Peeps. The latest one is Squishmallows, which is named after a stuffed animal both my kids sleep with. And it's
so unfair because the kids see it and they want it.
Yes. They see it and they want it, and they know how to hook children to it today. And if they're targeting children with these products, they at least have to take the artificial dye out, considering they know that artificial dye causes hyperactivity in children. Because when Europe 20 years ago looked at the studies and said, you know what, we need a warning label on any product that has artificial food dyes that says may cause adverse effects on activity and attention in children. So parents know that these dyes could affect their health. Kellogg's and other, American food companies reformulated their products without these dyes, making the exact same product that tastes the exact same way for people in Europe, taking out these chemicals and using real food chemicals like carrot and blueberry juice and watermelon juice to color their cereals there, and continue to use the artificial base dye here, which is made from petroleum and coal tar. And
why is it cheaper? Like, why would you do this to us?
It's about shelf life. So carrot juice, blueberry juice breaks down faster on the shelf, right? Whereas petroleum coal tar dye doesn't, right? So they again can leave the product back on the shelf longer, but it also is cheaper to use a petroleum based dye than a real food dye. So they're putting profits over our children, over people. They're putting poison over people. And this has got to stop. They were on the right side of history. They were willing to make these changes, but then they completely backpedaled. And there's nobody in government right now holding these companies accountable. There is nobody saying, hey, wait a minute, you said you were going to do this and you got all this positive press and it was national press and you didn't do it. Like, it's like they completely hoodwinked the American public. And for people like me and the amazing, who I call the food babe army, the people out there that are not only care about their health, but they care deeply about spreading the word about this, then these kind of companies would just get away with it all the time. And it's really up to us to hold them accountable. And that's why I started a petition. And now it has over 220,000 signatures. And it's something that I think is really going to be important when I deliver these on Tuesday, to show that Kellogg's, like, you cannot get away with this. And it'll send a message across the food industry. You cannot get away with this. Selling the safer version of the same product to other countries and not Americans.
It's totally shocking, because I think we don't even know the amount of disease that comes along with these chemicals that we're consuming every single day. And we have the highest rate of mental illness. We have kids that are struggling to focus in class. We have issues that no other country has. And yet we know that this is in our food. And I think you're right. We have trusted the FDA, but we have also trusted our elected officials. And you say there's nobody in Washington that has fought back on this. We also trusted the fact that there was an agency that was dedicated to just making sure that we were safe, and that those elected officials were holding them accountable. But I have to say, I think this shows the ugly side of politics, the dirty underbelly, where those companies give money to candidates. Like, here's what you get to run. Let's not, get off our back. Don't say anything about what we're doing. But, okay. Now this is cracked wide open. Nobody can say they didn't know, because I think this is now one of the number one topics in this election. And I think the next cycle, it will be at the very top, because we have found out that our children are being poisoned, and our families. I mean, I look back at my family years ago. In the late 90s, my grandmother died of pancreatic cancer. And now they're saying, oh, all these gut cancers are somehow connected to the fact that we have all these chemicals in our food. And gut cancers are becoming more and more. You've got colon cancer, you've got stomach cancer, you've got pancreatic cancer. Well, 2 years ago, I lost my dad to pancreatic cancer. I had breast cancer. No one in our family had cancers like this before. And when we went with my grandmother, they said, oh, the doctors at the time said, this is because she had a habit of drinking Coke and eating Oreos. When my dad was sick, no one would say anything about, oh, it's not the food he consumed. It's not the food. Well, what do you mean? What is it? I mean, we deserve answers, because we know there's an uptick in these cancers. It has to be what we're eating.
Yes. And I really think we need executive leadership on this issue. And that's why in the Senate, I used my, 12, 13 minutes that I was able to give a testimony. And I asked for both sides of the party to join me at Kellogg's next week on October 15th. And I've been trying to reach out to the vice president's campaign. I have not heard anything back. I'm trying to use all the contacts I have and tweeting her directly, doing whatever I can. Now, on the other side, I have been able to reach other people in terms of who, are connected with Trump. Like I went on Charlie Kirk yesterday. He said he's talking to Trump and RFK about being there at Kellogg's, which is just incredible because that's the kind of executive leadership we need that hold these companies accountable, show up when there are hundreds of moms and dads and parents on the ground doing one of the biggest massive grassroots rally that we've ever had about the food industry, right? This will be groundbreaking on Tuesday. This will make history. And I really hope that they seize the opportunity to show that they're serious about these issues. Yeah. We need people that are at the top talking about this and holding these companies accountable.
Well, we'd like to see people in our state. I mean, I am so grateful that you are coming here and talking to this company here in our state. I wish that our governor would get involved, that Governor Whitmer would get involved. However, yesterday she was seen giving someone a Dorito on a social media video where she had a woman kneeling in front of her and she's playfully giving her a Dorito. I would say that you've probably found some things in Doritos as well that are not so great for kids.
That makes me sad. That's actually the vice president's favorite chip, according to a video I saw too. But, the Doritos here in the United States have MSG and several different artificial food dyes. PepsiCo, who distributes Doritos, doesn't do that in all the other countries, right? They take out the artificial dyes. They're using real food ingredients over there. So they're just as guilty in terms of what's happening in the food supply with them. So we've got to hold these companies accountable. I mean, to see our leaders doing that is just maddening. And it kills me because I saw my governor recently I'm from North Carolina, and I saw my governor take out one of the, elected officials running for office to the worst fast food place here in near Charlotte, and I was like, are you serious? This is the op that you want to show? This is the opportunity of leadership when it comes to healthy eating or real food. And it's so sad. We live in a society where we're being constantly bombarded with these messages that it's okay to eat these chemicals. You've got the Kelsey brothers on the cover of Lucky Charms right now, and Cinnamon Toast Crunch and other sugar-laden cereals for General Mills, also with artificial food dye, by the way. Lucky Charms is the second to Fruit Loops in terms of cereal sold that has artificial food dyes. And they're the lead, athletes at the moment. And they are literally on the cover, on the face of these products. Thankfully, I can't believe this just happened, but in the last 24 hours, we have major celebrities saying that
I saw this. I'm so happy too.
We should boycott Kellogg's and no longer eat them. Kim Kardashian, Kourtney Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian all came out and supported our campaign. Ellen DeGeneres retweeted and sent maybe not retweet is not the right word, but she reposted on Instagram Eva Mendes's post, where Eva Mendes had done a 3-slide story about how she is no longer going to support Kellogg's anymore. This is the kind of activism we need from our influenced, celebrities out there that can reach so many millions of people. We really need them to take a stand. And, I'll just put it out there. I guarantee you won't hear one news story about this. They care more about what celebrities are wearing than what they
won't,
stand
because
for.
they're sponsors. These are their commercials. They will not go against anyone who sponsors their television program or their network. So you will never hear. And that's why they've gotten away with this for so long. And that is what I love about what you are doing, because it is nonpartisan. It is catching on across the country. It doesn't matter who you go to vote for at the ballot box. at the end of the day, you want your kids and you want your parents and you want yourself and your spouse to be eating something that is not killing you. I mean,
Yes.
that's the reality of this. When you say we're being poisoned, it is shocking to hear that other countries don't do this. And our kids are getting sicker every day from what we put in their lunchbox. And it horrifies me. And to have Eva Mendes and to have Ellen DeGeneres come out and say that, I looked at that and I'm like, you know what? There's probably a lot that the three of us don't agree on. But everybody cares about your health because the old saying, if you don't have your health, you have nothing, right?
Right. Yeah, you definitely don't. And so this is, we're at a pivotal moment. And I just want to say, I'm really grateful people like RFK came out and took a stand on these issues, because I know I wouldn't be having this national platform like I have at the moment. I know I wouldn't have had that opportunity to go speak at Senate roundtable and have the national stage to literally name names and call out the companies like they've never been done before in Washington at that level. And I mean, it was just incredible watching the footage of that go so crazy viral. I mean, 100 million views of our Senate testimonies, every single person in that room, amazing doctors like Dr. Casey Means and Dr. Chris Palmer. And it was 4 hours of such beautiful conversation on how to save humanity, how to get the chemicals out of the food, what's wrong with the food system, what's wrong with the healthcare system, how our government agencies are corrupt and how they are being funded by the pharmaceutical, chemical, and food companies, and how to dismantle that. It was such a groundbreaking session that really Senator Ron Johnson should be awarded a freaking medal for even orchestrating that session, because again, everybody in that room, we had no ties to industry, right? We were there to tell the truth. We were there to tell the truth. And it was a beautiful thing. And, I've been on some podcasts and other, conversations this week. And it's really interesting because I feel like the legacy people, and it's not everybody, but it's certain people that have been around for a long time and they were on one side of the issue all the time in terms of left-leaning or Democrat, they are feeling a little butthurt right now that they're not getting the stage to talk about this stuff. Like that's the best way to explain it. And it's a really interesting feeling where I'm like, wait a minute, isn't this good for the country? We've got the Republican Party who hasn't taken up these issues, who typically and historically blocked legislation to handle chemicals in the environment, blocked other legislation about chemicals in food and other things, calling it the nanny state and all of that, right? Now we have opened up the conversation. Everybody's on board and listening to this. Isn't this the greatest thing for this country right now? Like, wow, that should be the sentiment that's coming from that side. And it's not. They're getting snarky. I mean, we've got The Atlantic, the only, by the way, mainstream media that covered the Senate roundtable, calling us the woo-woo caucus, and a bunch of influencers in the room. I mean, it was insane. I was like, wait a minute, I've written 4 books about this subject.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks for finally catching on.
I've gotten major food companies to change their chemicals. I have started my own company to change the food industry from the inside out. Like, you could call me anything else. A mother of 2 would have been a better label than influencer. They use these labels to diminish our credibility. And it was just like, I was so livid that that's the kind of coverage we're getting when we should be all coming together. Shame on them.
And in the past, I think you make such a great point, because in the past, if the left had owned this issue, it would be on every station where, oh, it's come to our attention. But they don't, and they can't, because like I said, the money controls what is able to be said, and their hands are tied. You have people, and quite possibly the vice president also has her hands tied, depending on who has funded her. And we know that the biggest corporations across the country have funded her. And so potentially that's why you're not hearing from her. This is something that we have had people say, well, Republicans don't care about the environment. They don't care about health. They're not concerned about climate. All of a sudden, the tides are turning and Republicans are saying, wait a minute. we have to be concerned with chemicals across the board. We have to be concerned with our kids' health. I have to say, you started this because you say, I was a candy addict. I drank soda. I never ate vegetables. I went to fast food and I was an unhealthy American. And suddenly I was awoken to the fact that I was unhealthy. I was sitting at a volleyball game for my daughter this week, and I was noticing that the kids were looking more and more unhealthy. You look at their parents waiting for them, they don't mirror their parents at all because we are feeding our kids food that we think is healthy. I mean, I went through based on the things that you've come out with, and I'm like, okay, I want to have something that's made with real food, that has few ingredients, that has things that I can pronounce. But then I'm like, I put chips of some sort in my kids' lunchbox every day. And so I get these like, what I think are healthy chips, and there are some multigrain thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, this has 3 ingredients. This is good. But one of the ingredients is like sunflower oil. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this not good? I get overwhelmed with how to make this work for my kids because I see my kids' bodies changing in ways that children shouldn't have to deal with.
Yeah. And the thing is living the real food lifestyle is not easy. We have to make it easier for people. We have to figure out how to dismantle the corruption so that people learn the truth, number one, about food and what's been done to it and what they can do to break free from the chemicals in food. And that's why I've written 4 books about the subject, because I think it's so important for people to become educated and have the tips and skill sets that I taught myself when I figured this out 20 years ago. I was still working in the corporate world when I was figuring this out. And I just had to become very unconventional. I had to bring my food from Charlotte and fly up to Detroit. So a little story about Michigan. Michigan is where Food Babe was born. It was a time period where I was traveling from Charlotte to work at Ally Bank, and I was working for these big C-level executives, and I was flying back and forth from Charlotte and Detroit for 2 years. And I had to figure out how to eat healthy on the road and find out how to eat healthy when I went to restaurants, and find all the cool little places and cafes that I could find near Detroit. And I found myself driving outside of Detroit to like Royal Oak to this amazing cafe. It no longer exists. It's called In Season, if anybody remembers it. It was groundbreaking for me. Like just all of the conversations I had with the staff there and sitting there. And that is the moment where I was inspired to really start Food Babe. And that's when I gave up television and started writing with the time that I had when I gave up television. That was the best decision ever. And Michigan is really near and dear to my heart. So when I'm there again next Tuesday, I just feel like this is like this full circle moment of being back there and holding Kellogg's accountable.
I think that what you said just now is so impactful for so many people because we give up. It's too hard. We can't find it. And it makes me mad at the grocery stores because for me to get dye-free dye just to make cookies at the house, I have to go to the health food store, which is out of the way. It's hard to get to. And for me to find pudding that doesn't have color in it, all of the ingredients that you want. And none of this is at the regular grocery store. They do not have a section where you can be free of all of the chemicals, which is crazy because I heard someone the other day say, why is there a health food section in the grocery store? What's all the other food? And it's true. But even in the health food section, you don't have anything free of these chemicals. They're everywhere. It's very overwhelming. And we do look for, okay, what can I throw in my kids' lunchbox that's going to fill them up? They're going to get through the day, but they're not going to be poisoned. It's very hard.
Yeah, it is really hard. And so I think the key thing that people need to recognize, they have to read ingredient labels. Read the ingredient labels, find out what those chemicals are. If they're there for the purposes of making the food companies more money, don't buy that product anymore. Buy real food products.
How do you know? How do you know why it's in there?
Well, if you don't recognize it and it's not an ingredient you would find in your own kitchen, then you put it back. You use your common sense, right? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to be know how to eat. The only people that have made food complicated in the last 60 years are the food scientists themselves at these food companies, right? They've been able to create these chemicals to hijack our brain. So we remember a flavor and we crave the flavor and we're addicted to that flavor. And that's why, you won't find myself like feeding my kids goldfish, because that's exactly what the food industry wants you to do. They want that kid to feel like they have to eat the same thing all the time and have the exact same flavor. Whereas if I were to give my kid blueberries every day for snack instead, sometimes they're mealy, sometimes they're sour, sometimes they're plump, sometimes they're juicy, sometimes they're sweet. Blueberries vary. And that's the beauty of nature, is all of those sensations that we get in our mouth when we eat something from nature, our body responds to it. And so not only do our kids not become picky anymore because they can handle a lot of different varieties of food, but they are essentially, of course, more healthier because of the nutrition that you would find in a blueberry versus a bag of dead goldfish.
That's so funny. My mom is the worst about eating fruit and healthy food. And she used to say, "Oh, I don't like fruit because it can trick you. Sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's not." But like, I love your take. And I'm totally using that with her. I'm going to be like, you do not have a sophisticated palate. You should be enjoying all the different levels of fruit. Because she says that to my kids. I'm like, you're not, hello, grandma, you're not helping. Stop.
Yeah. Well, grandmas are going to be grandmas.
Right. Exactly. But you did have some success with companies like Chipotle. They changed their menu, correct? So there is hope for this.
Yeah, there's definitely hope. I mean, again, I think consumer pressure, choosing a different brand other than Kellogg's when you're going out there to buy cereal. I mean, obviously don't choose it because of all of the chemicals in it, but there's so many other great cereal brands out there now. There's Eat Love Bird, there's Seven Sundays, there's, I'm trying to think, there's another one. You could just, again, my kids have never had cereal. We've always just been a granola family or an oatmeal family. You don't have to eat cereal. Your kids don't have to have that. And the most important part to recognize in all of this is, as a parent, you are in charge of what comes into the house for many, many years of your kids' lives. At least 15, I would imagine, until they can go drive on their own, right? And so for those 15 years, make your pantry pristine. Get the shit out of there,
Yeah. I mean, even, gosh, the teenage girls are obsessed with the coffee shops and these crazy drinks. And I'm like, we watched a video the other day of how much sugar and fake syrups and all these things are in there. And I'm like, you guys, this is why you have to get over wanting to go get these things that are frozen and whipped up, and they're filled with calories and chemicals. And like, if it tastes like this, but there's nothing that is come from a strawberry in there, it's probably not good for you. But it's really hard. There's so much marketed to our kids. And now I think more so than when we were little, because, we had commercials, but they're on Pinterest, they're on Instagram. It's constantly, this is the latest here, this is the latest at this shop. And it's all fast food and coffee shops and all these things. It is a lot of pressure. So you're right, up until 15, but I think you can still be educating your kids, and we need to educate ourselves before we can educate our kids. So you have books that we can educate ourselves. So where can people find the book? How can people follow you? How can they sign the petition? Because that, to me, is the most important thing, is that we have enough people to say, we're done.
Everything can be found on foodbabe.com. Just go straight there. The petition's there. The books are there. Everything is there. All the links. Sign the petition if you want your name included when I deliver those on Tuesday. And if you live in Michigan, come out and be with us. Bring your family, bring your friends, bring your children. Show them what it's like to hold companies accountable for their lies and for better ingredients, because this is really how we're going to change the food system.
Do you think, just ask you one more thing, do you think that there is a future in the United States where it is illegal to put poison in food?
I would hope.
So I think that's a conversation to have with your elected official as well. I really think people should start calling their congressman and saying, I want you to do something about this. I want you to get on the side of health. I mean, how can you argue with being on the side of health? And I think that as we've learned this, and again, I thank you for everything you've done, because honestly, It was so overwhelming when I first started to research what you were doing. And I found you and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we doing to ourselves? And I think there was a part of me that pushed it away because I'm like, I don't know how to fix this. But you never pushed it away. And I'm so grateful that you have kept fighting and that you've made these changes. And that to me is what people really need to understand, that you as a single person can do this and make huge changes. So I'm so proud of you. I mean, I'm so amazed at what you've done. Honestly, like what I will say, finding you all those years ago, I was like, this woman, there's something special. And absolutely, you're amazing.
Thank you. That really means a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. So all of you out there, follow Vani Hari. She does wonderful work. It's Food Babe. Make sure you check it out. But also for all of you folks in Michigan, give us the time. What time should they be there?
We're going to be meeting in Battle Creek, Michigan at 10:30 a.m. at Friendship Park.
All right. So all of us Michiganders, we need to get there. If you can take your kids, because there's nothing more important to your future as someone who has lost a grandmother and a father too early and also almost lost my own life too early. I believe this is all connected. You don't want to go through that yourselves. So please check it out. Thank you so much, Vani. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. As always, subscribe at TudorDixonPodcast.com or head over to the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts and join us next time. Have a blessed day.